In this episode 59 of The Daily Hustle, it is part 2, talking about managing your time like a billionaire, and we're getting into specific steps to mastering your individual time management. Also, if you think things are crazy these days, wait till you hear about the year 59.
Broadcasting from the box that rocks and Thrive15.com world headquarters, it's The Daily Hustle with Daniel McKenna.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's episode 59 of The Daily Hustle Show, part 2 of the Managing Your Time Like a Billionaire, Maximizing Your Time Productivity. Over to my left, Marshall F. Morris. Over here, Daniel McKenna. This is the year 59, Marshall, AD episode.
I noticed that we've gone away from the sports
Well, it turns out
jersey numbers.
It turns out that there was nobody interesting that I could find that wore the number 59. So we went with some history instead. We're going to go back to the year 59.
I think Jack Taylor wore number 59.
Jack Taylor might have worn 59. Jack Lambert wore 58, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Jack Taylor might have worn 59.
Okay.
And if you think, you know, there's a lot of political unrest these days, Marshall, a lot of, hardcore left, hardcore right, not a whole lot of like in between, right? At least you don't hear about it very much in the news. A lot of craziness, a lot of people thinking, "Oh man, it's the worst. This is the worst time. This is the worst." Well, let's go ahead and go back to the year 59 AD. Let's talk about the year 59. Emperor Nero. He orders the murder of his mother, Julia Augusta Agrippina. Decides to off his mom. He tries to kill her through a planned shipwreck. He's like, I got this idea. I'm going to put her on a boat, right? And then we're going to crash that boat. It's going to look like, oh man, that sucks. My mom died. But she survived. She survived the shipwreck. So he has her executed and frames it as a suicide.
Dan, have you ever tried to plan a shipwreck?
I have not tried to plan a shipwreck.
The things that would have to go into planning a shipwreck.
Well, I think the concept is pretty simple. The concept is, you have this boat right here, right? You take that boat, you see them rocks right over there. You're just gonna just steer that boat straight into them rocks.
That's commitment. Do you think this was a big boat?
There had to be other people involved, right?
This is year 59.
This is the year 59.
And they didn't have small boats back then. They only had big boats.
Small boat technology had not been invented.
No. They didn't have a little dinghy.
Also, how many other people were involved? How many, if you've got a big boat, you probably have, 5 people, 10 people running this thing?
70 people.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's a lot of people.
Do you tell, the one main dude this is what's going to happen and let the other ones freak out? Or do you, have a meeting and tell all 70 people, hey, by the way, guys, here's the plan. I want you guys to crash this boat and make sure my mom dies. We on the same page?
I don't know how you have that conversation. That's a very candid conversation.
It's a very strange, candid conversation. Did not end well for her. But that's the year 59 AD.
Yep.
Things were slightly different then.
Episode 59.
The episode 59. I'm glad you guys are here with us. We're going to go ahead and get into part 2 of managing your time like a billionaire. In the previous episode, we talked about how you can manage your team's effectiveness by breaking down your impact areas of your business into 1-hour meetings weekly, in which you focus on those impact areas and no more got-a-minute meetings. The times that you talk to your team during the day are set aside for specific times to let you focus on growing the business in those other times. So now, let's talk about your own individual time here, Marshall. And maybe you aren't a person that leads a team right now. Maybe you work as a team member and want to be a team leader at some point, right? Or maybe you are that team leader and now maybe you just freed up 75% of your time to work on stuff that matters. Well, what are we going to do with that time? All right, let's go ahead and jump into the 5 steps to mastering your individual time management. Just in case you did not know, maybe you skipped over the previous episode because you were very interested in the history lesson that we're going to give everybody here today. This is from the book Ultimate Sales Machine. Marshall, go ahead and give them the summary of the Ultimate Sales Machine. Why does this book matter?
It's one of the world's best business books for creating a duplicable sales system and creating time management magic.
That was concise and succinct.
Thank you.
Well done. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into this here, Marshall. Here's the scenario. I'm going to read the scenario, and you tell me if this scenario sounds real or if this sounds completely made up. I mean, it is made up, but it's supposed to model real life. You tell me if this sounds like real life. Okay, here's the scenario. Marshall's not amused.
I'm reading the scenario.
Here's the scenario. You get to the office. It's a cold day. No, that part doesn't matter. You get to the office. You open up an email. Like normal, you're checking your emails, getting started for the day, right? You read a paragraph and you realize this is going to take longer than I want to deal with right now. This is about that California initiative. Can't work on this right now. I've got other emails to get to. Okay, save it. I'm going to go back to this email. Okay, it's going to take longer than right now to work on. You move on to a different email. You start working on that email, but then the phone rings. You talk on the phone for a few minutes. Hey, Janice, what's up? Janice, okay. Yep, yep, got it. Yep, got it. Okay. You get off the phone, but now you've been talking to Janice for the last few minutes. Now you don't remember specifically like what you were working on in the email. So now you got to go back and reread the email to know the specifics. You start working on that email again, but now it's time to get to the meeting. Then you got to go to the meeting. Then you come back after the meeting. It's now an hour and a half into your day. You haven't really functionally done anything yet. Does this sound like real life? Does this sound like this could possibly happen to people in business? Is this really happen?
If you are not proactive about reading your emails, then it will become a reactive activity, including reading an email once it immediately comes in. You can't do that. You have to begin becoming more proactive with your email response.
All I was asking for was if this sounded like real life, if this sounded like, this is people's work day. I wasn't really asking for like your thoughts on the subject yet. I'm going to ask you the thoughts on the subject. I will.
Okay.
But does this sound like do people get caught up in this busyness of doing things in an unorganized fashion, which is killing their ultimate productivity because they're spending huge chunks of time not actually functionally getting anything done because they're having to go back and reread the email, reread the letter, get my mind right again about what we're talking about, right? Because it takes you 5 minutes, 10 minutes to like zone in on something, to focus on something, and then all of a sudden that concentration is broken and you work on something else and you come back and you got to like take that 5-10 minutes again to get back into it. Does this happen?
Yeah, for reactive people, this does happen.
Perfect. I'm glad we had this whole like 4-minute setup to Marshall saying, "Yep."
I tried to give you some meat. You didn't like my meat.
Okay. Well, here was a little tidbit from the book here. If you spend 15 minutes each day revisiting emails, letters, etc., which I would say 15 minutes is pretty conservative if you're not a proactive person, if you're a reactive person, that'll equal 97 hours a year spent where no action is taken. Meaning you're spending 2 entire weeks-ish of your work year getting absolutely nothing done. I personally would prefer to like just go on vacation those 2 weeks as opposed to like spend them rereading emails that I'm not really interested in.
Or more offensively, your employees are doing this.
Is that more offensive? I feel like that's less offensive.
I think it's more offensive. Your employees are spending 2 weeks a year just opening and closing emails. That's a waste of time and money. That's offensive.
Okay. Well, I think it'd be more offensive if you said it's your fault. I mean, that's more offensive than saying your employees are wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Was your goal to offend or was your goal to just make a point?
Both.
Okay. Okay, let's get into some specifics here, Marshall. We're talking about these steps to mastering your individual time management. This first concept, number 1, is the touch it once concept. Marshall, what is the touch it once concept? What are we talking about?
So the touch it once concept is basically you don't touch something, you don't touch an action item, you don't touch a task, you don't touch whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing until you're absolutely mentally committed and ready to deal with it. So there's some things that you can touch in the middle of the workday that is in alpha mode, an alpha process, a execution process action item. And then there's some things that require critical thinking, and those have to be dealt with during your meta time, or more of a time that you can be proactively and plan and think more clearly. It's typically not around other people. So the touch it once is basically saying in this email scenario is don't open the email until you're ready to respond to it. Okay. So specifically for me, I have to do all of my email in the morning before I leave my house. That's when I do all my email. I knock it all out. I don't see other people. I'm drinking coffee. It's a quiet time. I can think critically about it, but I'm not picking and choosing the different emails that I want to respond to. It's just you answer all of the emails in your inbox, all of the new emails for that particular day, and you get your email inbox down to 0 every single morning. You don't revisit it later on in the day.
The reason we keep harping on the email I'm getting choked. I'm very emotional about this email subject.
Yeah, I can tell.
The reason that we're harping on the email is the primary communication tool that we use in business these days to talk to one other person or the other, right? Like before, it was you just get on the phone and call somebody. But it's more convenient now to have an email thread to say, real quick, bam, 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 send it off to Marshall, cool. But that doesn't mean that it's like Marshall has to answer it right now. In the previous episode, we talked about freeing up your time by telling your teammates, your employees, I'm going to be available from 10 to 10:30 and 3:30 to 4. Those are the 2 times in which I am completely open, ready to talk to you. We can even sign up for those times if you want to, right? But the rest of the day, you can't come to me with got-a-minute meetings. We're talking about maximizing your time productivity and focusing on the things that will actually change things for your business. So, emails. If you don't proactively do this, now all of a sudden your got-a-minute meetings are just you answering emails all day long. You sending off an email comes in, reply to the email, send it off, start working on something else. Oh, another ding, over here. Oh, got an email. Got to answer that email. Does this happen, Marshall? Is this a normal thing?
Yeah. So because there's a book called Emotional Intelligence, it's by Daniel Goleman. He says, we have merged into a generation, a day and age where we are always connected to the office with our smartphones, okay? Our smartphones, they always have some kind of notification, email, text message, phone call, voicemail, whatever it is. And because of this, because we have a virtual connection to the office, for the first time we have to create a virtual boundary to the office, okay? And so if you're being reactive all day to all these different notifications and they're always grasping for your attention, then at no point will you be able to be mentally engaged with whatever is presently at hand, okay? And so one of the moves that I have taken upon myself is my phone just lives on Do Not Disturb all the time.
This is a fact.
And you cannot call me, or
you actually cannot call him.
It's
he has a phone, but not for phone purposes.
No, not really. And it's been a game changer. I don't feel compulsion to be checking for a specific notification, mostly because I don't get them anymore. Okay, I don't have them. So I address the phone when I want to address the phone, rather when the phone wants me to address it. But this is the exact same principle for your emails. Okay, just because something comes in does not mean it needs to immediately be addressed. And so there's different strategies in terms of dealing with that, okay? Addressing the subject line more effectively so that you can manage your emails more quickly, including only the people that need to be on the email thread, including everybody that needs to be on the email thread. These are just very common sense principles that I feel like oftentimes will get overlooked, and then the email communication gets broken down.
Let's dive into that here. Let's dive into the specifics here to give them some of the specifics of how this would actually play out, how you'd actually pull this off. We say emails, but obviously, you know, the millennials with their Facebooks and their Twitters and their Snapchatting, they're snapping all day long, probably sending weird pictures on that Snapchat. I'll tell you what. Those millennials. Any communication device, right? Like any sort of back and forth communication, the same principle applies. Just because you get a ping on Twitter or a ping on Facebook and you get that red little dot thing going on, little red notification, doesn't mean you have to go, oh, got to get it. Right? Okay. So let's talk about some specifics here, Marshall. You talked about the subject line for the email. So you're going to have to teach your team how to do this, because we're saying if you touch it, you're going to take action. You're going to open the email at specific times when you're ready to deal with that email, right? How does this work? What does the subject line have to do with this?
The subject line is intended to be specifically what it is. A subject line. What is this email about? So rather than putting some kind of, this is a response to your question, well, I have no idea what the question is, and furthermore, I have no idea what your response is in context to. So specifically put what is the action item that needs to be done in the subject line, or whoever it is addressing, or what is the detail of what is being talked about in this message, and editing it to update it. Because if you don't edit the subject line, if you don't update it, then eventually it just becomes this regarding RE colon, and then another RE colon, and another RE colon, and then this thread becomes crazy long and you have no idea what the original thread or the original post was about. Or, this is my other favorite, you address action items in a different thread, a different subject in the same thread. For every action item, every topic, every subject, it needs its own thread, its own subject line, its own topic, okay? You can't address other things in the same email thread. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm passionate about that.
No, that was good. So changing the subject line is one move here that you're gonna have to teach your team to do, right? Instead of sending a Marshall an email saying, subject, Thrive Time Show. Marshall does not know what that email is about. Therefore, Marshall's going to have to open the email, start reading the email to find out what the email is about, and he may or may not be able to work on it at that time, which is now killing his mojo.
That's right.
Instead, it should say something like, Thrive Time Show, new digital mixer installation. Now Marshall probably has an idea of what he's talking about. Okay, we're talking about the digital mixer. Okay, cool. That is important, but maybe it's not the most important thing right now. I'll get back to that. I'm not even going to read that email. And then also assigning, when you're doing these sort of things, changing the thread. This definitely does happen, especially once you get more than like 2 people on the thread and you start sending emails all back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now the subject is something completely different than what we started talking about. And then you're like trying to find that email, trying to find those, like you can't, like, we talked about the digital mixer, but the subject line says something about a conference? I don't know. Right? So you're going to time block your day for specific times to deal with emails. Unless the new email that comes in changes the scope of what you are working on, you're going to ignore the email inbox until it is time to go through your emails. This will keep you from being reactive all day. So let's say you are in a position where you have to be, like if a new email comes across that actually matters. It actually matters on what you're working on. Well, you would know that if the subject line is correct. If I'm working on installing the digital mixer and all of a sudden I get a email that says urgent about the digital mixer, now I know, okay, well, this is probably relevant to me to go ahead and check on right now, as opposed to coming back to tomorrow after I spend my whole day installing this new digital mixer, right?
Furthermore, I don't believe in necessarily urgent emails.
You don't believe in urgent emails?
No.
You don't believe they exist?
Nope.
They are a fiction.
If it is an urgent action item, you call or text me.
Okay.
Or the way that we have our office set up is so we can physically go grab the person that needs to be, the decision needs to be made with.
So how do you do this? How do you do this externally? How do you do this for people that are not in the office?
You call them. You physically call them. So we use email as a purpose of communicating and creating a paper trail and creating the verification that things are done. Okay? Because you can't verbalize a Dropbox share link through phone. So you say, hey, I'm going to send you a Dropbox share link. Or, hey, this morning during the time that I sent out all my emails, I sent you that share link. Did you receive it? Yes, you received it. Okay. The action item is in there. I've now confirmed that you received the email. You have the resources to do the action item. I will follow up with you tomorrow. And then you give them the day, or you give them the 2 days, or however long it takes to actually complete the action item. But you are actually following up with the people outside of the office via phone.
When do you normally do your emails? Is there a set time? Is there a specific, like, this is when I do emails?
I do emails in the early mornings every single day.
So depending on when you're going to get to the office, it's just before then.
Yeah, it's at least 2 hours before then.
Okay. But doing this is what frees you up to actually do things like work while you're here.
That's right.
Okay, so the concept that we were talking about is schedule those hourly meetings with your team, schedule the buffer time in your schedule that we're available for got-a-minute type meetings, right? You're also going to schedule when you're going to handle your email. So maybe for you, that's at 8 a.m. and at 4 p.m. Or maybe for you, that's like, I'm going to handle all of my emails at 4 a.m. and then not look at it again until the next day. Whatever it is that you need to do for your schedule, depending on how your business works, setting aside specific times in your schedule to say, this half hour, this hour, this is when I'm replying to emails. Whatever the subject line is, pull it up, cool, bang it out. And maybe that is got your email, I'll have this done by 4 p.m. And it's going to go on your list. Because the next point we're going to talk about is making lists, Marshall. Look at that segue.
That was phenomenal.
That was professional level segueing.
That's Segway, S-E-G-W-A-Y.
That's right.
No, that's wrong.
Oh.
But maybe you were segueing. Maybe
I was on a two-wheeled motor vehicle, Marshall.
How can we look up how to spell the Segway?
I think it's like S-E-G-U-E or something like that.
I think and so would there be an ing at that? Is that an appropriate use of segueing?
Segueing?
Segueing.
Well, okay, so I did spell segue correct. S-E-G-U-E-E. That's correct. Segueing? Segueing? I don't think you say it like that.
I think it's S-E-G-W-A-N-G. Segueing.
Segueing. No, S-E-G-U-E-I-N-G.
Sign us up for the spelling bee.
We are ready. We are ready. Okay, let's talk about this here, Marshall. Point number 2 of the 5. Point number 2 of the 5. Making lists. And the long list versus the action list. The long list versus the action list. Now,
I love this.
On the long list is everything that you need to work on. This is basically your brain dump. This is getting it off of your mind, having to remember everything, putting on your long list. Here's the things I need to work on. Thought of that, got to put it on the list. Thought of that, got to put it on this. Saw that email, got to put it on the list. Got a call, put it on the list. This is everything you got to work on, right? Come with an idea in the middle of the day. Oh, we need to change the sales script. Got it. Put it on the list. Do you have a list, Marshall?
I have a list.
How long is your list?
107 action items long.
107?
Yeah.
That's quite a few.
Yeah, I looked at it this morning.
We'll spend 8 seconds on this. Do you during the day, do you have that thing with you? Do you like, what's that? New thing? Okay. Adding it to my list and moving on to the other thing.
Yep.
Why is that so important?
Because now I'm not trying to run around to a computer or on my phone trying to update it online. I just print it off every morning, and then I can just put all of my ideas down on paper immediately, and then I can address it the next morning and transfer it to a digital format once I've completed that particular day.
What about just the fact of having that list with you, whether it's paper or digital, having that list with you as sort of a brain dump to say, oh, just thought of this now. I need to put this on my list.
Yeah.
But then you immediately keep moving on to like whatever it is you're working on. Right?
Sure.
Am I making this up?
You're not making this up. It's specifically the pen is for remembering, the mind is for thinking. And so if you're trying to remember a bunch of things all the time, then your mind gets very, very scattered, okay? And so you have to create more room to do all of your critical thinking. So that's why the process of writing it down so that the pen and the paper can remember that idea, that thought for you, allows your mind to be more free to do other things.
I know this sounds simple, but this is sincerely such a big deal, especially if you work in like a creative space. I do photo and video stuff every day. if you work in like a creative space, just being able to actually focus on whatever it is you're working on and not trying to also remember the things you talked about and not also trying to remember about the meeting and also try to like just saying, okay, this is something I've got to do, putting it on my list, going to keep working on what I set out to work on. This is kind of a big deal.
That's right.
Okay. We're talking about the long list versus the action list. Point number 2 here, Marshall. We're going to get into this here in the next episode about the action list. I want to go with a little tease here. It's a little tease about the action list. But go ahead and leave the people at home. Leave them with one last thing about your list. So your list is 107 action items long.
Yeah.
That's a lot of action items.
It's a lot of action items.
How many items did you add from this morning's emails?
This morning, I think I added somewhere between 9 and 12 items.
So potentially, theoretical here. Potentially, you came in with the idea, Monday, I'm going to work on that new marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But now you just got 9 to 12 more to-dos to add to your list from this morning's emails that you probably didn't plan on.
Yeah.
So how are we going to get stuff done that actually matters?
So what you have to do is you have to prioritize the new items with the old items. And so you have to evaluate what needs to get done today.
So in the next episode, we're going to be talking about the action list and getting things done that actually matter. That's it for this episode, though, Marshall. That's it. That was a big tease for the next episode.
That's you're a teaser. You tease.
This was the year 59 AD episode.
The year 59 AD.
Yeah, we had never done an episode like this.
No, it never named an episode after a year.
No.
Is next episode gonna be year 60 episode?
No. Next one you're gonna like a lot.
Okay.
The next episode you're gonna be really appreciative of.
You're teasing me again.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
That was episode 59, part 2 of the Managing Your Time Like a Billionaire. Come on back tomorrow for part 3, episode 60. Over to my left, Marshall Morris. Over here, Daniel McKenna. We'll see you then. Bam.